taking this time to pause and reflect and let that grace kind of flower in you and find out what God has to say to you, because you wouldn't be here tonight except that God followed you all the way from the moment of your infant baptism until this day, until the day coming in March when you stand before the bishop and he will confirm in you the baptism that you received. And you know, the Christian community is something that we're going to talk about in this last half hour of our class, because it's very mysterious that we are all drawn together here from all over the diocese, from all different neighborhoods, all different backgrounds, and like I said, all different stories that have delayed our confirmation to this point. But I believe that it was a grace for you that your confirmation is coming at this very time. Not a mistake. It's not like, oh, my parents didn't do what they were supposed to do, or we missed the sign up, or my family split up, and it wasn't a mistake. God was waiting for you to have this time for your confirmation. So it's not like, you know, this is a makeup. Now this is your time. This is your time. So we have this story to us. In the earliest Christians had a different way of initiating people into the faith. They didn't have the structures and the registrations and the sign-ups that we have. When people joined the faith, they came to the apostles who baptized them, and then they just started to follow Christ. And as the church, the early church, the one that we see in the New Testament, came along, they had different ways of people being initiated. But it was all about declaring that they wanted to follow Christ. So today, we've developed a process that helps us to do that. But all of us are coming because we want a change in the way we were. Something, even though we might think, okay, we're good Catholics, right? And we get to Mass at least a few times a year, right? And now, something has called us, and we want it to come deeper, and that's God's grace to you. But this church that was built at the beginning didn't have a lot of buildings. It actually had people that gathered wherever they could gather. And here's a reading from a letter of St. Peter. So this is attributed to St. Peter, the one on whom the church was founded, right? And in his letter, the first letter of Peter, it says, like newborn babies, crave pure spiritual milk, so that by it you may grow up in your salvation. Now that you have tasted that the Lord is good. As you come to him, the living stone, rejected by men, but chosen by God and precious to him, you also, like living stones, are being built into a spiritual house to be a holy priesthood, offering spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. You are being built into a priesthood, not in the ordained priest sense, but as a person who actually can convey Christ to the world in our own ways, with our own talents, with the people that we know. So this community of faith starts out built of living stones, and it's only later in time that we started to have buildings. By baptism, Christian, you got my little drawings here? The Christian community comes built on baptism. And so blue in my little plan stands for baptism. This is a community that has some things in common, but some differences. We have common values. We believe in the dignity of human beings. We believe in the value of family. We believe in reaching out and helping the poor. We believe in taking responsibility for one another. We also, this community has a certain loyalty to it. even though Catholics range all across the political spectrum, we have a certain loyalty to the faith that was passed on to us by our parents. And it doesn't mean that we won't have complaints. Just like our own families, we have a loyalty to our families, even though they're not perfect. So there's a loyalty to being a member of the Catholic family, because there is a belonging that's involved. All across the world, there are Catholics who are praying today just like us. And in their cultures, I love that we saw different kinds of cultural pictures of Jesus in the pictures that Michael showed us, because you can imagine Christ in Africa, imagine Christ in Asia, that really today Christ is present in Africa and Asia, in the persons of those people who are living their Catholic faith, with different music, with different dress, but with a certain common value, based really on the Apostles' Creed and their loyalty to their church and to their bishop. Also, you are all called to some kind of action in concert with other people of faith. And it may not be in context of your parish, but in the course of your lives. We're going to talk about that a little more. The church, those living stones, is really built on households of faith. So this little symbol kind of has that baptism wave in it, you know. But the thing is that, yes, we could say that the church is built of families, but every household of faith is a element of the church. So I want you to think for yourself about who is family to you. You may have lived with your spouse and your children. Maybe you're a single parent and you live with your children, or your children are grown. So we all have to think about the family from which we came, right? Even if you're a single person living alone, you still have family. Michael's stories about his family really show you that, you know, we have these connections. Might not live under the same roof, but we have family, right? So think about your household of faith. Okay? Well, a parish is a collection of households of faith. They're actually, the way the church is structured is that you know, in the reading that Michael had, Jesus says, go out to all the world and baptize, make disciples of all the nations. Well, the way the Catholic Church is structured throughout the world takes that seriously. And in every place in the world, even Antarctica, that's someone's parish. There's a responsibility of somebody. Some priest has responsibility for every corner of the world, whether there are Catholics that live there or not. Because in our mind, because of Christ, we have a responsibility for everybody, not just people who profess our faith, not just people who do everything right, but every person, whether they are Catholic or not, are actually in a parish that is part of the responsibility of the church. I think that when I recognize that about parish, it helps me to see the broader vision of the mission of Christ. That it's not the mission of Christ to create one church. It's the mission of Christ to bring the whole world into the kingdom of God. It wouldn't be enough to just have everyone be identified with a certain set of creed, because Christ can be bigger than that. We Catholics believe that Christ will find a way to save people, even if they have not fully heard about him, or if so. Being a Catholic is a way of reaching out to those people and saying, "Here's Christ." But Christ has a way of bringing all people into the kingdom of God. It's a mysterious thing, but because we're Catholics, we have a way of approaching that is tried and true, something that we believe. I want to be clear though, because I'm not saying that it's not important that we have church. I'm just saying that every parish has responsibility for all the people in that vicinity, and not just people who are Catholics. So the way the church is structured, all these different parishes, households of faith, and their neighbors are connected in some way to the local bishop. Coming here for your confirmation classes is interesting in a way because you look like this little diagram, all those little parishes, right? So that you're coming from other parishes and you're gathered outside the church of the bishop, right? So the bishop is the one who makes the community of the church in a local place. Any questions so far? Okay. Now this is a picture of the Pope's parish. This is St. John Lateran in Rome. And I put a picture of the Pope's parish church here to give you an idea of the breadth of the church across the world. Sometimes we think in terms of just our parish. And we love our parish, but it's bigger than just our community. All across the world, speaking many languages, there are dioceses across the world that belong in communion with the universal church, connected to the Pope, who also has a parish. Right? Now, you see pictures of the Vatican. That's not a parish church. It's a special kind of a facility that doesn't have a parish structure in it. It's a basilica. So this universal church has organization that is very old and it's very structured. You know that when you came in the building, you saw the sign for congratulations, Cardinal O'Brien. We have various orders of structure in the church that have developed over time. That in your parish, you have your parish pastor, and he will have a staff, some of whom will be clergy, deacons, other priests. He'll have lay people, like Michael was a pastoral associate in his parish. And Kathy serves the basilica in the same way. And so that the parish structure is presided over by bishops. And there are bishops all over the world that are appointed by the Pope, who has the authority to do that. There are special people, special priests that have been given an order called cardinal that gives them special duties in the church. An archbishop is a bishop that has the responsibility for an archdiocese. Archdioceses are different from dioceses basically because they're bigger. They don't comprise lots of different dioceses. Archdioceses are just bigger. And you might not know that Baltimore is the first diocese in America. Back when America was, before it was ever independent from, I don't know if it was before it was independent, but the first diocese of America was one diocese, Baltimore, and it encompassed the whole of America. And eventually it got broken down into smaller pieces as there were more and more Catholics to be served. I think the structure of the church can be understood in terms of service. And that helps me to understand why it makes sense that we would have a parish in Antarctica. Someone needs to be responsible to serve people who are there. That's why we have this structure, not to control that group, but to serve that group. And I think that helps me to understand the meaning of the structure of the church. So I I tried to explain that Christ has this mission to bring the whole world into God's kingdom. That God has this dream for the kingdom, for the world, to all be in God's kingdom at the end of time. And he has a church to help him with that mission. So what I'd like you to do at your table is to consider these 3 questions. And I'm going to give you about 4 or 5 minutes to just talk to each other and to think about these questions. Now, this first question, you might just want to think about that for yourself and keep that to yourself. What you think is your role. But the second question, think about the talents that you have that are valuable to bringing about this kingdom of God. And then, who are your co-workers in your mission? Okay. Take about 5 minutes and I'll call you back, okay?